It's been forever since I hopped on here, since I used to do this every morning, and now I'm not, and I miss you guys. So hop on. I'll give you a second to get in here. We're going to talk about something really cool today. I love having a candle going, but I just realized that I don't have a lighter. That's okay. Anyway, hop on, say hello. We're going to talk about inherited imbalances. My camera keeps flipping in and out. Say hello, 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 hello. All right, we'll get started. Perfect. It looks like all my stuff is going. So we're going to talk about things that I call these nice little gifted bundles, although I'm not really sure that in most cases, hello, Michelle. I'm not really sure that in most cases that they're necessarily the greatest presents that our ancestors can give us, but it's really enlightening to when I tell you these things that we're going to talk about tonight. Man, I'm having a hard time getting in my groove. Like I'm blah, 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 blah. When I tell you about some of these things, you're going to have a click moment, which is one of those. I call it like a aha moment where suddenly you're just going to say, wait a minute, that makes a whole heck of a lot of sense. Okay. Now I'm really not the greatest with big words. For those of you that have done sessions with me before, and when I get into the medical part of what I do, there are so many medical terms that I just stumble over. So we're going to try to get this word. Epigenetic. That's what we're talking about. Epigenetic inheritances. So Google that, take some time and read about it if you want to get more into some deep dives into the science behind this stuff. It's pretty amazing, pretty fascinating. So I'm going to tell you about one study in particular. So scientists have they make a labyrinth, right, where they can watch the rats run through it. And so the rats are smart. Hello. Hi, Kathleen. Hello, Jan. The rats are running around in the labyrinth and they eventually, figure out how to get out of it in this little maze. And so what happens is the scientists intentionally zap them with a little tiny bit of an electrical impulse at one specific spot in this maze. And what is amazing as after they take these rats out of this maze and then they breed them and they have generations of little baby rats that they now as they grow up, they put them in the maze and they let them do the same thing. They can reproduce the same results from the reaction that the other rat had that was the one that was shocked. So basically is what happens is, right, that rat gets a little zap at a specific spot in the maze, and then those generational rats down from them run through the maze, and when they hit that same exact spot, they have the same reaction as the rat that was initially shocked, even though they're not actually being shocked. So there's some kind of inherited process that goes on where the rat who was initially shocked, DNA or chemistry from that and the DNA is trying to do something to protect the offspring. And so when those offspring rat hit that same spot, even though the scientists don't shock them, they have the same reaction and they stop dead in their tracks. And so it's an amazing phenomena that this happens. And so that's what that's called. So it's called epigenetic inheritances. There's so much to learn from this and so much that can be studied, but the things that I'm going to talk to you about tonight you are going to just have all kinds of bells going off. So I'm telling you, grab your cup. I'm going to grab my cup. Grab your cup. Grab your cup. You're going to need it. Get your little, I need a drink of water. Because this stuff is really good. It's very interesting as well. Okay. Now, some of you might really be into ancestral stuff, right? In the community that I come from, looking through your ancestors is, let's see. Norman, your question, can childhood abuse make them abusers? Are you saying can somebody that, so we're talking about inherited stuff. So this is going to be things that specifically your previous ancestors are passing down through DNA and genetics. So I'm not sure exactly what your question is. Are you saying if a child is abused, can they become an abuser? And if that's your question, then absolutely, because what do we learn as children? We learn from watching, right? Hello, Amber. In fact, there was a particular person who I witnessed kicking a cow and in the face. And when I saw that happen, I was like, okay, no. I didn't want my child to see that. My 5-year-old, who would have been, I don't know, 3 at the time, witnessed that, because then what happens, right? If you witness someone in your family abusing an animal, then more than likely not more than likely, I wouldn't say, I don't know what the statistics are behind that. So, I'm not going to quote any numbers here, but it's definitely learned, right? You're either going to grow up to hate it and not do that yourself, or you can grow up to do the same thing. So absolutely, because children learn by watching. And I've even met people that I've done sessions on that are doing that, reproducing that behavior, and they know that they don't want to and they don't like it, but they are, because it's so learned and it's a habit that they have to break because that's just what they know. So yes. So I guess in a way you could say that that is an inherited thing, because then, those people can pass those on and continue on, and it just keeps going. So I'm going to talk to you though about two kind of, I want you to think of this in two, we'll call it twofold. So first one, definitely there's DNA and there are gene issues that can be passed on. Now, there are certain gene issues that it kind of gets into a sketchy spot, because you'll find people, or you'll find different practices that say, hey, you can actually modify or change your DNA. And I'm not going to go down that road. I'm just going to tell you that we can do things that make it so that the DNA that you have responds differently to specific events. Okay. So I want you to think about it this way. These are the same thing. This big word that I keep having to read because I'll mess it up if I don't. Epigenetic changes. Okay. I want you to think of it like this. This is when an environmental factor creates a change in the DNA. Okay. So basically it turns specific things on or off. So you can have a reaction, just like the rats in the maze, getting zapped in one spot and passing that on. So that's more what we're talking about. We're talking about things that are in your DNA, in your genes. And if you rewind back to years when you were in school, somebody probably at some point in some biology class or some class where you're talking about genes, you learn about recessive genes and you learn about dominant genes. And so I want you to think about these things as stuff in your DNA that they're kind of sitting dormant. They're not really expressing themselves. And then let's say that you get into a car accident, and then lo and behold, suddenly now, boom, all kinds of things start happening. And you may sit back and be like, I don't really know what's going on, because I didn't even injure my shoulder, but it's really, really hurting. Stuff like that. Or you're suddenly just having all this anxiety, or something's going on and you're like, it really wasn't, you're like analyzing it and you're thinking to yourself, I really don't feel like it was that big of a deal, but it becomes a huge deal for you. I'm going to adjust my camera just a tiny bit because I feel like it's totally crooked and it's bothering me. Okay, let's try that. Okay, now, so that's one. Okay, so think of it like that. You're born, you've got these little, I kind of just had like a thought. Think of it as like a little corn, a little popcorn kernel, right? What happens before a popcorn kernel gets hot, right? It's just there. It's nothing going on. There's no energy in it. It's just hanging out. So let's think of it like that. A little kernel, little popcorn kernel is your little DNA. Then something happens, an energy, a trauma, all of these types of things, we have emotions or chemical responses, and boom, the popcorn kernel gets hot, and what happens? It pops and blows up. So now suddenly this little tiny kernel becomes this big magnificent thing. I really like that symbology. So we're going to use that. So that's the DNA gene type thing. Okay. But then we can also have specific energies that come from specific events. And these types of energies are going to manifest themselves in ways that are going to be really confusing to you if you do not understand what is going on. Now, we live in this beautiful time in this beautiful world where we have all this fantastic technology and we have beautiful modern medicine, which can be so fantastic and so great for so many things. But at the same time, it also creates almost this blanket effect where we don't see anything anymore because we're not willing to look outside the box. We have such a set process in the way that we do stuff, right? So I'm sitting at home, I suddenly start to feel sick. Then I'm like, oh, and then I'm like, yeah, you know, if you're like me, you'll be like, I'll give it some time. Maybe I just got a little bug and I'm going to see what's going to happen. And then, you know, it doesn't go away. And then maybe now I have a couple of other symptoms. So I'm caught. What am I doing? I'm picking up the phone. I'm calling the doctor's office. I'm making an appointment and I'm going to go in. And then I'm just going to list off to the doctor all of the things that I have going on. So I'm going to be like, I have fatigue. I have a sore throat, la, 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 la. And maybe they're going to draw my blood. And then coupled with the other things that I said, basically the doctor is looking at it and saying, okay, hey, this is what this looks like. And then I'm going to get a diagnosis. And that's the way that it goes. When we think outside the box, though, we find all kinds of things. Like we find that, oh, wow, you're actually having a pain in your hip because when you have a little infection going on in a tooth, and teeth are big culprits for creating lots of kinds of problems. They are literally connected to everything in your body, from organs to, you know, specific parts of your body. And so having a tooth issue can be humongous. And I mean, I will say when I go to the dentist, I'm like, I get called the lady with the Jesus teeth because I've just got really great teeth and I've never had any issues with my teeth. So then on the other hand, I've got my husband who doesn't have his teeth. And so it's like, you know, how many imbalances can you have when you actually have to have your teeth taken out and replaced with other ones? I mean, it's crazy. The amount of things that our teeth that are hooked up to. Same thing with teeth that have been pulled. So, Michelle, that's a great one. And that's what I was talking about when Dave had, Dave had really bad teeth. And part of that was, you know, he openly admits that he didn't take very good care of them. And part of it, I'm sure, is just not having great teeth to begin with. So his teeth had bothered him for so long. He finally just had them all taken out and he has a full set of implants on tops and the bottoms. So when he had this happen, I was like, whoa, you got to let me do some energy work on you because you're about to have so many teeth pulled out, and talk about imbalances. And so I did a lot of energy healing on him when he had his teeth pulled. So yes, Michelle, just like anything else, you can check for imbalances associated with that specific tooth area. You can get cavitations where you get like little bacteria in the spot where the teeth have been pulled out. So you can just ask the subconscious, do I have any imbalances associated with, you know, whatever tooth we're talking about, and check and make sure that there's no underlying connections with anything else. So same thing when you have an organ removed. So you have your spirit body, you have your physical body, and when all is well, they're lined up and they're beautiful, beautifully balanced. Well, you have an appendix, that's your physical appendix. You have a spiritual appendix, and same with gallbladder, same with anything. So when you go to the doctor's office and they remove one of those, kind of think of it as almost like you have a twin and suddenly now it's gone, right? Your body's like, your spiritual part is like, where did my physical appendix go that I was created with? It's not there anymore. And so those create disconnections and issues as well. So lots of kind of stuff can be going on there. Okay. Now think of yourself and all of the things that I just talked about. Okay. Because a lot of this is resonating with many of you. You're like, I've had a tooth pulled. I've had an organ taken out. Okay. Now I want you to think about all of your ancestors. So think about all that genealogy, especially for those of you that have done some genealogy work and you've seen your family tree. Think about all those people, right? It branches out. You get your DNA from so many lines of people. And I want you to think about, just pluck out one person, just pull out your paternal grandmother. Think about all the things that she's probably gone through as far as teeth. Every time she's been sick, every really traumatic thing that she's been through. Okay. Now let's rewind that back to another generation. And then as we keep going, the things that people were going through are magnified because they don't have technology and they don't have the ease of the way of living that we do now. And the further back you go, the more that people were going through every single day. So is what happens is that specific energies from things that our ancestors have gone through, they get trapped into our DNA because they are chemicals from emotions or sicknesses. Everything is an energy, and they can be passed on to our offspring through our DNA, just like any other DNA thing, just like the fact that, I got the color of my eyes from one of my parents. Same thing going on there. And of course, it can just be like, if you've seen any of my kiddos, I have two boys that are blonde as blonde can be. Blue-eyed blonde boys. One of them is 21 and one of them is 5. They do not have the same fathers. So, right? Obviously, I'm not blonde hair and blue-eyed, but I'm carrying genes that I have blonde-haired, blue-eyed boys. And so same thing, right? May or may not see any of this stuff that you get from your ancestors, but you may see it in specific places. So maybe you don't have it, but you see something going on with your kids. So let's talk about the first one. This is what we refer to as sickness energy, trapped sickness energy. This is going to be stuff that happens from illnesses. Hello, Lisa. Stuff that happens from illnesses. So once again, think about the amount. Hello, Mandy. Think about the amount of diseases that we currently have here. And I actually was looking for something. I actually have a chart. I don't know, I don't know where my chart is right now. Anyway, so many, this is just one of them. So many common parasites. And I mean, this is just, you can't really see because it's going to glare. So many different ones. And if I were to read some of these too, you'd be like, what now? And some of them are like Helicobacter pylori. I mean, all kinds of stuff. Salmonella, E. coli, strep. Some of these are foodborne. Some of them are funguses. Like we have some parasites, blood flukes, fish flukes, intestinal flukes, fish worms, tapeworms, pork tapeworms. I don't know. Anyways, these are all things that you and I have probably not heard of a lot of those. Okay. Because our bodies have created the ability to fight through them. We have, things that prevent us from getting these. And technology has prevented us from having a lot of these, and we've got them under control. But during specific points back in your genealogy, we did not have any of this stuff. And so lots and lots of people came down with lots and lots of things that ended up taking their lives or that severely affected them from a really long time. I'm so sorry, Lisa, sending you lots of love. That's a tough one. So when our ancestors go through these types of things, then those can become trapped in the DNA. So let's just pick one. We're going to use polio because this one is one of the first ones that I came across where I was like, wow, this is really cool. So I was working on a client and she was going through some pretty significant issues with one of her feet. And I think we had done a couple of sessions at that point. And so sometimes I call these like the one and done. Sometimes we'll do a session and work on you for like 5 minutes. And honestly, your pain that you've been having for who knows how long is just suddenly gone. And it's amazing. And even people that have been like on, I've had people who have been scheduled to have surgeries that have canceled their surgeries, and their doctor's like, you can't just not have that. And they're like, well, it's not hurting anymore. So it's pretty crazy. So working on this lady, she's had a couple of, and you know what? I'm gonna actually make myself a note. I want to do this. Why am I not healing? I'm typing in, why am I not healing? Because that's something I really want to talk about. Okay, so let's go back to this. So I'm working on her. It's like the second session and we're working on her foot. And I come across this. So those of you who are like, I don't know what you're talking about as far as connecting with people. So when I do my energy healing, one of you has something right here. Like, does somebody have something going on in their tooth? This one. So we don't connect to people without their permission, but sometimes just being in the same energy realm as people, just because I'm empathetic, like I'm just going to pick up on somebody's something. And one of you has got a serious issue going on with your tooth. This is your upper, what side is this? If you are sitting where I am, so it's your upper left, or to you, your right, but your canine tooth right there. Okay. Focus. That was weird. Okay. So my client ends up having, as I'm checking with her subconscious to figure out what we can release so that she can be balanced, so she can heal. So that's the way it works, right? I connect with your energy. Energy has no limits. I'm putting actually together this cool guide with like lots of research and data that is connected to, scholarly references on how energy works. So if that's something you're interested in, you can message me or just type in here that you want that. Just type research, and then I'll message you and send it to you when I'm done. So I am working on her, and I'm connected to her energy. We're talking to her subconscious. So I'm talking to her subconscious and finding out imbalances that she has going on that her body can direct energy to fix. And that's how this process works. I'm not the one actually healing you. You are healing yourself. I am just the person in between to say, okay, hey, subconscious, this is what we need to do. And so we're defining it so that your cognitive subconscious mind can work together to get rid of this stuff. So anyway, I'm working on she's inherited imbalance. I'm like, okay, now, if you've worked with me before, you know I don't ask you lots of questions. So I don't know anything about her grandpa or any of this stuff. And I'm like, ooh, you have this inherited issue, something to do with the polio. And she didn't really say anything super immediately, but I was like, oh yeah, I see polio, someone not being able to walk. It's affecting your foot. And sure enough, she was like, told me that I think it was her grandfather, he had polio and had to have his foot amputated. And so she had this energy from this. And it was actually causing her an imbalance in her foot, even though she didn't actually have polio herself. It was just a residual energy that had come down through the DNA. So pretty cool, because we can just release this energy, and we do this for what is called all dimensions of time. So I know that sounds a little, out there, but all dimensions of time, what does that mean? Simply means we're releasing it from all of your family. So we want to release it from your children. So we do it with intention to release it from your kids. We do it with intention to release it from you. We do it with intention to release it from however many generations. So we figure out, we ask the subconscious, because it knows, how far back this goes. We'll be like, oh, this is on mom's side. It goes back 82 generations. And we're going to release it. So what a beautiful blessing. It is a inherited, beautiful release where we are, or you can think of it as a generational break, whatever that is, and we can get rid of it. And so it's beautiful because you're not passing it on to anyone else. And for these releases, I love them a lot because a lot of times we can feel all the ancestors there. We can feel future generations to come. And everyone is just kind of celebrating this moment because they know this isn't being passed on anymore. So same thing goes for diseases like fevers, flu, measles, mumps, rubella, you name it. Smallpox, I ran across smallpox the other day. But so many things that can happen. Now, the other thing to that is, I want you to think about someone back 30 generations ago. And let's say they have typhoid fever and they are literally fighting for their life. So not only can we have the inherited energy from the sickness, but we can have inherited energy from an emotion on top of it. So maybe I now have a trapped fear of dying. Some bells should be ringing for some of you right now because you're like, wait a minute, do I have symptoms for something that sounds and looks a lot like a disease, but I can't get any diagnosis for this? Or do I have random things like I have a fear of dying and I don't know why? It's totally potentially possible that these are because of inherited imbalances, okay? So sickness energies, these are really important to find, especially if you are going in and you're like, I cannot figure out what's going on. Typically, when I have a client come to me and they can't get diagnosed with something, like the practitioner's like, well, it sounds like, looks like, smells like this, but nothing's working that would otherwise get rid of this or help with it, then a lot of times that's what this is. Or you have a parasite, because parasites are underlying culprit for lots of stuff. And unfortunately, we just don't have a good way to test for parasites. And so you can have them and nobody's really going to be able to tell what it is or help you out with it. You just get to be really ill for a really long time. Okay. Now let's talk about the next one. So that was sickness energies. Now we're going to talk more along the lines of emotional energies. Okay. So let's go now and think back, pull out your family tree again and think about some of your ancestors and some of the stuff they've been through. Now I live in Utah. So one of the big things that is taught in my culture is about people that came across the plains in handcarts. And so we hear lots of stories because lots of our ancestors in the cemeteries around here have documented journals about things that they went through when they were coming from, England across on boats, and then they would get to America, and then they basically have nothing, and then they would join these little, what they would call handcart companies, and then they would trek across to clear out here to Utah and all the things that they went through. And so think about your own ancestors. A lot of you know great stories about their immigration or things that they've been through, but those things that they've been through are emotions, and they are chemicals, and they are reactions, and they change the way that our cells are. And so those can be passed on as well. The one that really rings strong for me to share with you right now, and probably because I've been through this myself, is think about when you are doing your DNA, if you've done any genealogy work, and you go back and you find, if you're lucky and people have taken good track of, it's well documented, all of the children that someone has had, you'll run across, families that have had like 15 children, and there's only like 3 of them that actually survived. So one of the big trapped emotional imbalances that can be generated and moved through and passed on in DNA is that exact thing, loss of children. loss of children, just the grief from losing family members, or the grief from poverty. I've seen poverty a lot. I've seen people with trapped emotions from starvation. So think about all those things that people have been through, and those create what I call emotional energies that can become trapped. And so those can cause problems too. And think of any type of emotion: anger, rage, despair, humiliation, jealousy, feeling violated, you name it. And your ancestors could have had that same emotion. It gets trapped in the DNA. The body is using it as a way, like we talked about with the epigenetic inheritances, to try to prevent you from going through the same type of thing. And unfortunately, it can create some imbalances for you. So those are emotional energies. Now, this one, once we add this one to it, right, we're like building this up. We got like the stack of pancakes. So now we're basically at the top adding the butter. And a lot of you are like, oh my gosh, is this why I'm having problems that I can't fix? Or is this the reason why, I have this unexplained whatever is going on for you? So now we're going to talk about inherited trauma energies. These ones, when I'm working with a client and I hit these ones, I feel like more than any of the others, these ones just really ring. And the reason why is because of how strong that energy is when that person is experiencing whatever they're experiencing. So I have come across people who have had inherited trauma energies from ancestors having their tongues cut out. So, go with me now back to how we used to torture people when they were in trouble, right? If you stole something, we cut your hand off. So I've seen amputations, also amputations from people getting caught in machinery, getting your leg ran over by a wagon wheel, being in a traumatic accident with a horse, you name it, all of these types. These are more like trauma energies that can be passed down to our offspring through DNA. So we call these ones the trauma energies. Also torture. I've seen people who have energy trapped from torture. People that have ancestors that were, captured and put into slavery have lots of this type of stuff that is trapped there. Then, let's just add some, syrup on top of the pancake stack there. Abuse energy. So kind of going along the lines there of what was already asked, but abuse energy. So physical abuse can be passed on and trapped, but also sexual abuse. So, take a second, just like let all that resonate with you. Sickness energy, emotional energy, trauma energy. Man, that's a lot. That's a lot of emotions and a lot of people that could be passing on a lot of stuff to us. So I saw somebody make a comment today, and I'm going to use this for 2 examples. I saw somebody make a comment today, and it was, I don't know what's going on. I feel really anxious for no reason. There's always a reason. Just that you may not be fully aware of what the reason is, but sometimes they are things like this. They're underlying inherited things that are creating a problem that you know nothing about. And so that's the beauty of working with the subconscious, is that we are able to tap into that and to clearly see what's going on to allow the subconscious to release that energy. So when I talk about releasing energy, if you're like, I don't really know, what does that mean? So think about a time when you're going through something. Like I have a really close acquaintance right now that's going through a really, really difficult issue. So if she has something happen to her right now that's like not really that big of a deal, she's going to react to it in a much more dramatic way, right? Because her body can't process out emotions right now. If you're in a really good mood and you're really happy and your kids are making a really big mess, or something's going on that would normally just totally freak you out, but you're like, I'm not really bothered by that. Whatever, you guys can do whatever. That's because you're processing. You're processing emotions and they're not getting stuck. So you're having a chemical reaction to something, but instead of looking at the kid's mess and blowing up and freaking out, which is a chemical explosion, basically, and that emotion is getting trapped, and now you're carrying it around, and now you're like, man, I feel so heavy and yucky, right? When you're nice and balanced and you see your kids doing that, and you're just like, whatever. There's nothing trapped there. And so you're breathing, you're balanced, and away it goes, and it doesn't cause you any problems. So second thing about this is I'm going to roll this into something because I think it's a really big question. And by the way, if any of you have any questions about exactly how any of this works, feel free to type it in. But I wanted to also resonate this because I've seen it a couple times today. And by the way, and I was going to set it up before this, and then I was like, oh, that isn't going to work. So I had a group set up that was Blocked Emotions, and it was a group of people. But the problem with it is it's on private, and I don't want it to, do I want it to be? Okay, I'm going to rewind. Pretend that I didn't say that. I'm having a moment. I think that I can't remember if I have it so no one can see it or not. Anyways, just know. There is a couple of things that are going to be going on with my group. So you're going to see one group that is specifically aligned for this kind of stuff where you can ask questions, and it's going to be big picture. Like I'm going to share with you, hey, I released somebody's polio today, whatever. You can ask questions just like we had the question get asked. Let's see, by Norman about inherited abuse energies. So you can ask those kinds of questions. And then I'm going to have an upper level group. And the upper level group is going to be for, drum roll please, those of you that are empathetic, that are EMPs, and you know that you can feel things and do things, but you have no idea what to do with that. And so basically you're just going around, and it potentially is a burden to you, or it's incredibly overwhelming because unfortunately no one has ever taught you how to manage your gift. And I am calling it a gift because it is a gift. But before I realized what it was a huge burden to me. So I'm going to kind of have that base level, like, hey, this is where everybody can, ask questions, whatever, for those of you that are my clients that have things going on. And then there'll be a group that is like higher level. Hey, I want to do what you're doing. Okay. So let's see. Question 1. Why am I feeling anxious for no reason? I saw that posted today. Now, I'm going to come back to my huge caveat of please do not manifest things to your little brain that makes it so you believe that. So instead of saying, I feel anxious for no reason, what did I just tell myself? Hey, you feel anxious for no reason. And then my cognitive brain is like, she feels anxious for no reason. I feel anxious for no reason. Now I have my cognitive brain and it's saying, I feel anxious for no reason. And my subconscious brain is saying, I feel anxious for no reason. Therefore, serve you a platter. And now, guess what? I feel anxious for no reason. I've got my cognitive mind on it and I've got my subconscious mind on it. And now we're having dinner because we're all aligned. I feel anxious for no reason. When instead, I know that I'm feeling something, obviously. I don't want to reaffirm with myself that I feel anxious for no reason. And I actually had this happen to me yesterday. So I came home from camping and I was a hot mess express. And I was like, man, what is wrong with me? Why do I feel like this? And then I was like, whoa, no. Okay. Sit with yourself and say, why do I feel anxious right now? Because I'm pinpointing. So I'm turning this around. Why? I'm asking myself the question and I'm asking myself in the now moment. I don't want to know why I feel anxious 5 minutes ago. And I don't want to know why I feel anxious in 5 minutes from now. I want to know, why do I feel anxious right now? So you do this technique that I'm always showing you, right? So you relax your shoulders, unclench your jaw, unroll your toes, get the tongue off the roof of your mouth. Breathe in through your nose and allow yourself to melt, and then ask yourself the question, why do I feel anxious right now? And immediately I knew exactly why I felt anxious yesterday. I felt anxious because I am so used to having this beautiful set schedule. I go to bed, I wake up, I have a shower. I don't eat anything because I do keto and I intermittent fast. And when I'm camping, none of this applies. There is no shower. I'm eating breakfast with everyone else because everyone else is eating, and nothing is the same, right? I'm not sleeping in my same bed. And so I had to resonate with myself and be like, okay, I feel anxious because I'm way out of my my schedule. Now, I don't want to just tell Dave, I'm sorry, I can't go camping with you anymore because I really like to have this really set schedule and I don't know how to conform to this. And so instead, I sit with myself again and I think, okay, great. I'm anxious right now because I'm not following my set standard. So the first thing that I did was, I hadn't showered yet because I came home and I was like, well, I should go out and ride horses because I'm already yucky. When in reality, I got really stressed out and then I couldn't work with my horses because I was so stressed out. I got pissed off and told Dave I wanted to sell all of them. So then I came in and I was like, yeah, I need to unwind. So I went and took a shower. I got back in my groove. I put my sheets in the washer because I always wash my sheets on Sunday. I started getting back into my routine and immediately my anxiety started to lessen. And then I could think more clearly, because when we're like this, we don't think very well. And then I started to say, okay, you know what can I do to make this so that when I'm camping, I'm not having anxiety? So number one, I'm already making a commitment with myself, right? If I come up with some stuff, I'll feel less anxiety while I'm camping. Isn't that really cool? So now I know, okay, I'm coming up with something and automatically it's going to reduce my anxiety while I'm camping because I just told myself that. I'm making things to make my camping less have anxiety. So what am I going to do? A list. Super simple. I'm going to type out a list and then I'm going to put it in one of these. And this list is going to be everything that I need to take every time I go camping, because that's part of the problem, right? I'm focused so much on like, what did I forget and what's going on and this, that, and the other, that I'm already starting to freak out. So there's like one simple thing. I also committed to myself, like, hey, I enjoy a really great breakfast camping, but it might not be worth it for me to eat because it really does mess with me when I'm not used to eating until later on in the day. So commit to myself. Hey, maybe I'm going to just not eat as much, or maybe I'm going to try just have a little bit and see how that goes instead of like indulging in this full blown breakfast. I'm going to wake up and really hydrate myself so I'm not tempted to eat with everybody else, but I still want to enjoy it. So maybe I'll have a cup of coffee while everyone else is eating, whatever. So, right, I'm already starting to get into this groove of like, okay, this feels better. And then I'm going to release it. And so that's why. Now, last question I'm going to talk about today, because this is one of the biggest things that happens for people. And I see this so often because I'm in energy healing. Sometimes people do sessions, or sometimes people are doing all kinds of things in the energy realm. And they're like, why doesn't it work for me when it works for everybody else? This is going to be the beautiful part of my program. So remember when I told you that I'm going to have this upper level program for people that know they have some kind of gift, they just don't know how to use it? This is where this is going to come in, because you have to get in center. Western medicine focuses all on the cognitive mind and doing all this therapy and draining it, drilling it into your head that you should, you know, if you're arguing with your spouse, this is the steps you're going to do so that you'll stop arguing. Okay. And then energy healing focuses way over here on this other side, where we're like, ooh, we're going to work with the subconscious and we're going to unblock energy and create this beautiful flow. And then all is well. And then I end up with some people, right? There are some people that the cognitive thing works beautifully for them. They're like, yeah, I go to therapy and it's great and I'm fantastic. Super. Then there are some people that are over here and they're like, I do energy healing and it's great and I feel fantastic and it's super. But every once in a while, I find these people that are like right here and here. We'll call this the gray area. They're hanging out and they're like, I don't understand why nothing works for me. Energy healing doesn't work. Therapy doesn't work. And they're trying all this stuff. Let me just tell you, like, I have found the key for the people in the gray area. Sometimes your cognitive and your subconscious mind are doing what I call an inner conflict. And they're so having such an inner conflict that even though we can release things from the subconscious, your conscious mind is like almost like bam, replacing it back. So you have to get both of them on board. Now, some people, I don't have to do that. Some people's cognitive mind just like, whatever, it's just a follower. So the subconscious does things in the cognitive alliance. But some people's are not like that. And they're like, what are you doing over there? No, I'm not going with you into, whatever, never, never land. It's not happening. And so the cognitive mind needs to be aligned. And so that's why it's going to be fire. It's because I have figured out this way to focus on both. So we have the subconscious mind getting rid of all the trap stuff, and then the cognitive mind is here keeping it up. So like, we don't want to create this big, beautiful castle, right? And then we don't put any moat around it or anything to protect it. And then suddenly all this stuff comes in. If you don't have the conscious mind there protecting the castle, what'll happen? The invaders are just going to come in and torture and trash. And now your subconscious is full of all these emotions again. So you have to have both in order to keep this process going. All right, guys. So there we go. I hope you're having a fantastic night. I will be posting more information on how all of this is rolling out. If any of you are interested, you can message me beforehand, and I'll make sure to put you on my list. If you are like, oh my word, I know that I have to have all this ancestral stuff and you just want to get rid of it, you can send me a message, or you can hop on to blockedemotions.com and see when my session times are. But it's a beautiful gift to give to yourself and also to everyone else. So there you go, guys. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. I hope you have a beautiful day, night, whatever it is for you. And don't forget to love yourself a little more and be super sparkly.